tonight is he didn't win that fight with size or with power. He won that fight with skills. And we all saw that if it comes down to the skills, that Mikey Garcia is going to be the one who would win the fight based on skills. But tonight, based on skills, Errol Spence won that fight. It was absolutely beautiful to watch his combination and his display of skills. I have hardly seen anything like it.
Just to follow up on that one time, how big do you think a Spence-Crawford fight would be if we assume Crawford would beat Amir Khan? I mean, how big of a fight is that? Is that a million-plus buy fight, or is it too early for that fight?
I think it would be a big fight, but I don't think it would be as big as a fight between Errol Spence and Manny Pacquiao, for example.
Richard, let me ask you, Richard. As far as the Fox platform, I mean, there was tons and tons of advertising. From what I'm hearing, there was great sales on the pay-per-views from the early numbers. How satisfied were you in regards to the advertising, as well as in the future? Do we expect Fox to be a major player as far as the pay-per-view platform with a lot of the BBC fighters?
Well, I think the biggest story in sport in 2019 is not the emergence of these premium of these subscription platforms. The biggest is that Fox entering the pay-per-view business and Fox entering the boxing market the way they have done. They were not just like tiptoeing their toes in the water. No, they jumped head on, full in. And we've seen that in this promotion, and I think the way they look at it, the ratings they are getting are very strong for the boxing telecast, for their shoulder programming. So they're excited because they see a return. And I think when they're going to see the return from this pay-per-view, which early on it looks extremely strong, they have done a terrific job. And to have a free over-the-air network promoting marketing a pay-per-view is historic, and that was the first one. And I think there are going to be many, I know there are going to be many more to come. They've done a terrific job.
Richard, I imagine Mikey would want a comeback fight after this, but when that's finished, do you think we could get a Lomachenko-Garcia fight going forward?
Well, we'll have to see with Mikey. I think that's a question you're going to need to ask him, but I just want to say Mikey really, man, the guy showed balls. I mean, this is like, one of those situations where you go and not just in boxing, in any walk of life, you go and reach for the stars, you dare to be great, but you have to try because you never know what happens if you don't try. And he tried, and he came up short, but he tried, and because of that, I think he is Mikey and will always be Mikey, always be a 4-division world champion, and I think he has a tremendous and bright career ahead of him. Tonight it didn't go his way, but he's the kind of fighter we all want to see again, because he's exciting and he goes for it.
Richard, you said that you thought the Pacquiao Spence fight would be bigger than Spence Crawford. Why do you say that?
Well, I mean, because Pacquiao is bigger than Crawford. I mean, Pacquiao is a pay-per-view star, and so is Spence now. He's pound for pound the best fighter in the world. I don't see Crawford having, I don't want to take anything away from Crawford. I think Crawford is a terrific fighter, but I have never seen Crawford fighting a top 5 pound-for-pound fighter just like Errol Spence did tonight and put that kind of performance on the table. That's a signature win for Errol Spence, and Errol Spence deserves our recognition, not because he won, but the way he won. I mean, what he showed tonight was absolutely top level. It doesn't get better than that.
Richard, if you look at the welterweight class, Keith Thurman, Danny Garcia, Adrian Broner, and Sean Porter, they've all faced each other. But there's one guy they haven't, and that is Spence. That seems to be very peculiar. Based on tonight, do you think any of those guys, or anyone at 47 that's realistic, would be less or more willing to face Errol?
You watch and see with Errol Spence, we have a new era started today, the Errol Spence era, just like we had the Mayweather era. This is the Errol Spence era, and you're going to remember tonight here in Dallas when I said that the Errol Spence era has officially started today. And in order for that to be an era, you need to have opponents. That was what Floyd Mayweather had. He had opponents. He had the lined up opponents, one after the other, and he beat one after the other. And some fighters, which pound for pound might be just as equally impressive or as equally as good as a Floyd Mayweather was. I'm thinking of a Andre Ward, he never had these opponents lined up, and as a result, he never really got where he could have gone because he didn't have the dance partners. Errol Spence, you just gave a list. Errol Spence has these dance partners, and he hasn't danced with either one of those yet. So I think he has a bright future as a star and as a pay-per-view star ahead of him.
Well, with that also said, I think activity is important. Is there any way he could fight twice more this year instead of just once more? Because that's kind of been an issue with Errol.
Well, when you are going to be, ideally yes, but ideally what I like to do as well, in order to maximize these pay-per-view promotions, just like we've done with Floyd, I'd like to have a little bit more time to activate in-store activations, to really make these events even bigger and, and so on. So, I mean, it's difficult when you are a star at that level to fight 3 times, let's be honest. Twice is really the way it is. But, now what we have March, could it be that he's fighting twice more? Maybe.
I mean, given all the guys that Steve just lined up, do you think any of them can realistically give Errol a fight, given what you saw tonight?
Well, that's a good question. But there's always, in the end of the day, it's boxing, and you just never know what happens. And one might have the night of his life, and the other one might have a bit an off night. So you just never know. One punch can change it all. And from all of those guys he just listed, I could definitely give you some reasons why this guy, that guy, or this guy could win or should win, and so on. But after this performance tonight, it's going to be very difficult for anybody to bet against Errol Spence.
Richard, how confident are you that Pacquiao and Spence could be made next, like this year?
Well, I was in the ring when they asked him the question, and he didn't say yes. He didn't say no either. So I think that's good. It was sort of like a maybe. But as I said, it's probably not going to be easy to find opponents. I mean, I don't think you're going to find so many who wants to, when Errol Spence is going to ask who's going to want to fight me next, I think they're going to go like, I don't know.
He's too good. Now no one will want to fight him. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think that's definitely the case. But at the same time, he's going to be where the money is. I think he established himself tonight with Fox behind him, with Jerry Jones behind him, with this whole promotion. He established himself tonight as a pay-per-view star, as the pay-per-view star next to Manny Pacquiao in the 147-pound weight class. And so I think that people going to want to fight him because it's going to be where the money is.
Spence versus Pacquiao passing on the torch pay-per-view fight?
Yeah, Spence wins, yes.
Otherwise
it might be the burning of the torch, so we don't know. I mean, look, Manny Pacquiao is still Manny Pacquiao, so that is not going to be. You can't bet against Manny Pacquiao. I mean, I mean, as a fan, I would love to see that fight. But I would love to see as well Manny Pacquiao against Keith Thurman. I have no problem with that. I think that's a huge fight as well. Or Errol Spence against Keith Thurman, or Spence against Porter. Or, I mean, you can sort of like mix and match. That's what I said before, the depth of the division, and they all can fight each other.
Well, if you can get along with...
Said I don't.
No, it's not a statement. I said, if you get along with Barbarian, you can expedite that fight.
Yeah, well, I think, there's a lot of good fights, and the fight with Crawford certainly, is one of them.
Bob's already said he's open to coming here and having Crawford Spence here at some point. Bob's already said this. Would that be something y'all would be open to at some point?
Well, as I said, I think there's so many fights like right now within the, within the PBC universe. I mean, look, we have these, whether we like it or not. I think these fights eventually will happen when they are so big that you're going to have a few million pay-per-view homes and things like that. I mean, maybe us as hardcore fight fans, we want to see right now, today, tomorrow, next month, Crawford against Spence. That fight will happen, but it doesn't have to happen next, because I think there are other great fights which can happen and which, frankly, are going to be easier to be put together.
But Richard,
was that Keith Thurman calling, asking for next?
but Richard,
that was Manny Pacquiao. He said it's not a maybe.
Richard, but is there? Do you not have to make Spence Crawford sooner than later?
I'm calling you.
Because Errol might move up to 154 soon. A lot of people believe.
Yes, I mean there's great fights there as well, but I think he can still make 47. So I think that's the beauty with Errol Spence as well. They're going to be great fights for him at 54 as well. And who knows, maybe at 160 even. So, I mean, he's young, he's strong, he has, I think we all underestimated, at least I did. I knew he was strong and he was a difficult guy to beat, and his reach, and but his skills today really just like blew me away. That was beautiful to watch, and you could just see he had like fun in there. He really enjoyed it.
Richard, if you had to guess realistically who would be the next welterweight to step up and say, hey, I want Errol, and make the fight happen, go through the whole thing, who do you think that will be?
I think there's I mean, this is like a bit overplayed. I mean, Sean Porter, I'm sure, has no problem fighting Errol Spence, and nor does Keith Thurman. I mean, I know those guys. I promoted those guys for many, many years. So I know those guys are not afraid to fight Errol Spence. So whoever says different doesn't really know them. So they have no problem. I mean, they want to get paid. I mean, they're going to have to work out the right deal for whoever it is. But those fights are going to happen. I have no question about it. It's sort of like a question we have to discuss with PBC and with Al as well. I think there's some fights going to Showtime, some fights are going to Fox. There's so many. PBC is really the dominant player when it comes to boxing. You see the number of shows they do. I just talked about it. The number of champions they have. So there's definitely enough attractive matchups to satisfy the Fox audience, but satisfy the Showtime audience as well. And I think the same holds true for pay-per-views. You're going to see some of those pay-per-views on Showtime. Showtime has a tremendous pay-per-view staff. I mean, remember, we broke these records with Showtime. So Showtime pay-per-view knows what they're doing. They have a great team. And I think with Fox, they have a great team, and that was the first one. I mean, what they say, first impressions matter. Whoa, what a first impression Fox made. I mean, the production, everything, the shoulder programming. I mean, it's just. I was there at the ring, the cameras, these different cameras. And I'm sure I haven't seen it yet, but I'm sure the experience to watch it at home. Fox knows how to put on big events. Fox puts on the Super Bowl, and to have a network which puts on the Super Bowl, to put on these super fights. I mean, how great for the sport is that? That is what elevates the sport. That is what makes boxing a mainstream sport again, when you have a free over-the-air network on board. Because you saw that like the Ray Mancini was here, and some of the other old greats. Those guys, they all fought on free network television. That is what made them. And now, that was 30 years ago, and now we have it again with Fox. And with ESPN as well. I mean, ESPN does a great job as well.